观众朋友们好，现在是美国东部时间7月23日，这里是华尔街网报汤氏第1期节目。现在我们继续为您带来有关中国以及世界的最新消息。首先为您关注到的是中国卫健委所发布的最新通告。卫健委副主任曾益新在今天表示，中国现职党和国家领导人都已经完成了疫苗接种，并且强调接种的都是中国疫苗。曾益新在国务院联防联控机制发布会上做了如上讲话，并表示，这充分说明了中国领导人对于疫情防控工作的高度重视，对于中国生产的新冠疫苗的高度信任。曾益新还强调，中国已经有3个疫苗被世卫组织纳入紧急使用名单，其中有100多个国家都批准使用了中国生产的疫苗，包括土耳其、塞尔维亚、菲律宾、阿联酋、沙特、约旦、印尼、智利等30多个国家的领导人均接种中国生产的疫苗。而同时，在发布会上，中国解放军总医院的一位专家表示，针对网传疫苗接种可能会产生副作用，不会引起白血病和糖尿病，也不会像网络传言所说的导致肿瘤扩散，这一些都是不实传言。根据来自联合早报的整理报道，截至今年5月30日，中国累计接种冠病疫苗超过33亿次，累计报告预防接种后不良事件有23万起，总体报告发生率为每100万70.45例。根据发布会上所公布的消息，中国新冠疫苗的一般反应、异常反应、严重异常反应的报告率低于2020年全国其他常规疫苗的报告水平。卫健委强调，这充分说明中国的疫苗是非常安全的。再为您关注到的是中国国内政治有关消息。政法委旗下中国长安网显示，此前担任青海省委副书记的訚柏现在已经担任中央政法委副秘书长职务。根据公开资料显示，訚柏现年53岁，1988年加入中国共产党，曾经担任云南某地中院院长、昆明中院院长、云南省委政法委副书记等职。而在2014年6月，他调任迪庆州委书记，2016年出任青海检察院检察长，当时是全国最年轻的省级检察院检察长，2018年出任青海省委常委和政法委书记。根据来自联合早报的整理报道，特别值得注意的是，2020年祁连山南路腹地的青海省木里梅田某地出现了非法开采问题。随后，青海省委常委、政法委书记訚柏兼任海西州委书记，替换掉当时的文国栋主动投案。而在2021年，青海省委常委、政法委书记訚柏又兼任了青海组织部部长。2022年开始，他担任青海省委副书记。再为您关注到的是俄乌战争局势的最新进展。泽伦斯基在《华尔街日报》周五刊发的一篇专访中表示，如果没有收复俄罗斯占领土地之前就停火，那只会助长更广泛的冲突，让俄罗斯重整军队、补充后备，然后再对乌克兰发动进攻。他特别强调，我们认为首先必须解放所有领土，然后可以在谈判桌上再讨论未来今后数百年我们如何相处。而如果现在冻结与俄罗斯的冲突，就意味着让俄罗斯有暂时缓息的机会。根据来自《华尔街日报》的专访，泽伦斯基还谈到了美国所提供的海马斯系统，这是高机动性多管火箭系统。他表示，西方为我们提供的海马斯用料不同，效力低于乌克兰扭转战争局势所需。他特别强调，我们更迫切需要的是防空系统。现在前线俄军把大量远程导弹投在原本和平的城市。再为您关注到的是佩洛西访台事件的后续进展。美国国家安全顾问沙利文在周五阿斯伯安全论坛上被问及，美国总统拜登曾经在不同的场合说，美国将以军事手段保卫台湾，这是否代表着美国对台政策的改变？而沙利文则表示，美国对于台湾的政策没有变，美国将继续保持战略模糊策略。他表示，不仅在国际事务中，在人类生活的许多不同领域也是如此。在非常复杂的情况下，战略模糊是重要的一个特征，而模糊的创造性张力让多届政府可以在数十年里维护台海两岸的和平和稳定。特别值得注意的是，美国前国防部长艾斯伯此前访问台湾，并且出席阿斯伯论坛，而就在沙利文进行陈述的 之前几个小时。艾斯伯则重申，美国的一中政策已经过时，呼吁美国放弃对于台湾战略模糊的立场。他并表示，美国最初坚持一中政策的两大信条已经不存在。他表示，大部分台湾人现在认同自己是台湾人，而不是中国大陆人。第二，很久以前就已经放弃了回归中国大陆以及宣称回归中国大陆的愿望和雄心。他表示，比这两点更重要的是，中国方面一直破坏台湾关系法中的规定，不得使用胁迫来决定台海两岸的最终状态。艾斯伯的这样的话引起了北京方面的反对，也引起了国际媒体的关注。
So first, I wanted to read you the letter from the president's physician. Dr. Jha and I spoke to the president over FaceTime this afternoon. I asked him if he had a message for the American people. The president said he's still putting in 8+ hours of work a day, and that he wants to remind Americans to get vaccinated because, in his own words, it matters. Look, the president hopes the country will see that while we should continue to take COVID very seriously, we have the tools we need to deal with this. You have a few things that you wanted to share.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make a few remarks. The president is doing better. He slept well last night. He ate his breakfast and lunch. He actually showed me his plate. Didn't ask about the menu, but I did see an empty plate with crumbs, and I have some guesses about what was there, but didn't ask. No comfort food? Didn't ask. I did ask him about his appetite. He joked that his one regret was that his appetite had not changed. Look, he is in a very good mood. I want to take a step back and emphasize the message that you heard from Corinne. It's great to see the president doing better. He's doing better because he is vaccinated, he is boosted, he's getting treatments. He is getting world-class treatment, exactly what you would expect for the president of the United States. And the president has made clear to us that it's incredibly important to him, and therefore it's incredibly important to all of us, that all Americans have easy, free access to the same world-class treatment that he's getting. Vaccinations, therapeutics. So my message to my fellow Americans really is this. Please avail yourselves of this vaccine to build up your immunity. Please avail yourselves of treatments if you qualify, if you get infected. And let's continue to do everything we can to prevent serious illness and death from this pandemic. Being treated if you have a breakthrough infection. And if you don't have a regular doctor, you can go to covid.gov and find a test to treat site near you.
What's your message to Americans who still refuse to get vaccinated?
Let's start with talking to Americans. I think what we're seeing across the country is there are a lot of infections, but when people are vaccinated and boosted, they tend to have far less serious illness. This virus is going to be with us forever. It's really, really important that people build up their immunity against this virus. And so I've been very clear for years, 2 years, or a year and a half, I guess, since we've had vaccines, that getting vaccinated is one of the best ways that people have to protect themselves. To Congress, what I would say is Congress has been a great partner to this administration in terms of funding the COVID response, making sure that vaccines and therapeutics are widely available. And that's one of the reasons we have plenty of vaccines right now. But the problem is that we need to continue this effort. The reason we have seen so much progress is because we've had the resources to do the things that are necessary for the American people. And if we take our foot off the gas and stop, all this work that we are doing, we will slide backwards. And we do not want that. The president have been dramatically reduced by building up of his immunity and getting him antiviral drugs, the things that really make a huge difference in lowering his risk.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking the jury. We respect their decision today. I really want to thank those hardworking citizens of Washington, D.C. that had to take an entire week off to go through this, so their thanks. We respect their decision. We may have lost a battle here today, but we're not going to lose this war, okay? David Schroen's going to talk here in a second about exactly what the jury heard. They came to their conclusion, right, about what was put on in that courtroom. David Schroen's going to talk to you about our appeals process. But listen, in the closing argument, the prosecutor missed one very important phrase, right? I stand with Trump and the Constitution, and I will never back off that, ever.
This didn't seem like the misdemeanor from hell, Mr. Bannon. What happened?
I thought it was pretty good help.
This is round one.
Stay tuned.
This is a bulletproof appeal. Have you ever in another case seen a judge 6 times say in the case that he thinks the standard for willfulness is wrong? He said it doesn't comport with modern jurisprudence. He said it doesn't comport with the standard, the traditional definition. But he said he feels his hands were bound by a 1961 decision. You will see this case reversed on appeal. You will see all of these resources, 3 federal prosecutors, 4 FBI agents for misdemeanor, being wasted. You cannot find another crime in which misdemeanor or felony in which a person is convicted without believing or knowing or having reason to believe he or she did anything wrong. That's the standard that was applied in this case. The government said from the start the standard they were urging on the court was Bannon subpoenaed and did Bannon show up? Doesn't matter his reasons. They won the case, maybe in closing today. They lost their appeal in closing today. The overreaching by the government in this case has been extraordinary on every level. But shame on this office of the United States Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice for how far it went in this case. They put forward an argument today that completely tears asunder constitutional principle of separation of powers. They argued to the jury today that when a person gets a subpoena and executive privilege is invoked, it's for Congress to decide whether the executive privilege is valid and how broad it is. That's absolutely false. The courts, if there's a question, whether the question is justiciable in court. But if it is, only the courts can be the arbiter. They likened today Congress to a referee on a playground field with children, and that Mr. Bannon didn't want to listen to the referee. That's not how our constitutional structure works. Whether one believes executive privilege was properly invoked here, was valid, how broad it was, etc., when a former president or a current president invokes executive privilege, it's presumptively valid, period. It's not for Congress to decide that it's not valid. From the willfulness standard that the judge felt compelled to apply in this case, and which he said he's inclined to think is wrong, again, all they had to prove was that he didn't show up. That can't be the standard in a case, especially in a case that holds the potential for a jail sentence. So think about it. Any citizen gets a subpoena from Congress, hires an experienced lawyer. The lawyer tells that citizen, you may not comply. Not we ought to think about it. Former president invoked executive privilege. You may not comply. Again, you can debate whether he could have complied in part or in full. He listened to his lawyer. It's not an intuitive process. His lawyer directed him, he may not apply. The Justice Department decisions, as we've said in the past, their official position has been in the past that former and current executive branch employees, when they're served with a subpoena and executive privilege is invoked, cannot be compelled to appear, and in any event that this statute cannot be applied against them. There are issues for appeal in this case that are astounding.
One disappointment, and that is the gutless members of that show trial committee, the J6 committee, didn't have the guts to come down here and testify in open court.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bannon, does this embolden the committee? Your attorney. What's your understanding of where the 2 motions are?
Today, President Biden signed his 16th presidential drawdown package to provide Ukraine with vital security assistance. This package includes 4 more HIMARS, high mobility artillery rocket systems, which the Ukrainians have been using very effectively. And it also includes additional ammunition for those HIMARS, as well as 36,000 rounds of artillery ammunition to go along with the howitzers that the Ukrainians are still using. This announcement comes to $270 million worth of additional security assistance. Just to break that down for you, about $100 million is for the USAI Phoenix Ghost, and then the rest of it, about 175 or so, is for the drawdown package. Just to break that down for you, and that brings total that brings the total security assistance that we provided Ukraine since the beginning of this administration to $8.2 billion. The president has been clear that we're going to continue to support the government of Ukraine and its people for as long as it takes. The president did receive a written message from President Xi today through the embassy, as is appropriate. And the message was really focused on wishing him all the best for his COVID recovery. That was the sole substance of the message. No impact to the national security decision-making process by the fact that the president is ill with COVID. He, in fact, held a conference call this morning with his national security team. The United States welcomes this positive step, and we commend UN Secretary General Guterres as well as Turkish President Erdogan for their continued diplomatic efforts to reach this deal, which could address some of the far-reaching impacts of Russia's war. We think it's important to note, though, that success, of course, is going to depend on Russia's compliance with this arrangement and actually implementing its commitments, and, of course, ending its blockade of Ukrainian ports. We're grateful to President Erdogan and the UN Secretary General for their leadership here. This is a positive sign, but again, we just have to watch it closely to see what exactly the impact is going to be in terms of actual data. We just know that they have explored that possibility with Iran, and again, I think that exploration alone is indicative of Russia's continued isolation and difficulty in meeting their own operational needs on the ground. And secondly, certainly an indication that Mr. Putin is showing no signs of being willing to end this war, to negotiate good faith with President Zelensky, pull his troops out. Quite the contrary, everything indicates that he continues to want to prosecute this war and to apparently find new ways to kill innocent Ukrainian people. We remain deeply concerned by Turkey's threat to conduct a military operation in northern Syria. We continue to believe that such an operation would basically be destabilizing, and it could put at risk the civilian population there, as well as, quite frankly, the coalition's campaign against ISIS.